Hey guys, how's it going? Justin here with Practically Squared. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, what I wanted to take a minute to talk to you guys about is the Masterpiece Arms Matrix Professional Chassis System. For those of you guys unaware, Masterpiece Arms is a big supporter of the precision shooting sports, specifically the PRS competitions. You're going to see a ton of Masterpiece Arms products out there. You're going to see a ton of support at the matches and different stuff like that. You're also going to see a lot of their chassis walking up and down the lines. They've been around for years. They were some of the pioneers in the chassis system world, at least for precision bolt guns recently, and they make a lot of really good products. Now, talking about the support that they give to the precision shooting world, I was fortunate enough to get this Matrix Professional Chassis System as a result of the 2023 Pig River Ham match. It's a 2-day PRS Pro Series match that's held in Rocky Mount, Virginia. I was fortunate enough at the conclusion of the match to win a raffle, and I got this chassis basically for free, just my raffle ticket that I put in. So I was super happy to get this because I actually started out with a Masterpiece Arms Matrix chassis, the original OG Matrix. And while that was a good chassis, I kind of went away from it. I had a couple complaints with it, which we'll kind of talk about in a minute. But the Matrix Pro always kind of appealed to me. I felt like they maybe possibly solved a lot of the issues that the original Matrix had, and we'll get back into that here in a minute. But I never bought a Matrix Pro. I went a couple different routes. I tried some different stuff. And as a result of their support of the PRS, I was able to get one of these and try it out. And I'm actually pretty impressed with the thing. So in today's video, what I want to first start off doing is talk about a chassis, talk about why you should look into a chassis. I know I got a lot of viewers out there who might not be precision rifle connoisseurs or anything like that. And then we'll go over some of the specifications of the Matrix Pro. We'll work tip to butt, and we'll kind of go through some of the features of it and everything like that. We'll kind of compare it to the original Matrix, and I'll just give you guys my thoughts and opinions on the chassis. So first, let's talk about why a chassis system. Well, if you're going to get into precision rifle competitions, one of the things that's really important is getting a rifle to fit you very well. What I mean by that is you need to be able to adjust the balance point. You need to be able to tune it to whatever barrel length and barrel profile and everything like that that your system weighs. You need to be able to get it to balance pretty good. That's one of the most important things. Another thing is you want to be able to preferably adjust the length of pull, adjust the comb height, do different stuff like that so that way you can get it to fit you. We're going to be shooting in some not necessarily super comfortable positions. You're going to be bent over, you're going to be double kneeling, you're going to be single kneeling, you're going to be bent around stuff. And if you could adjust that stuff and get it tuned into you, you're going to be way more successful, and it's going to be way more ergonomic for you. So that's the real kind of advantage to a chassis system versus a stock. They're way easier to tune comb height, to tune length of pull, to even change out the grips on and do different stuff. You could balance them with different interior, exterior weights. They generally have Arca rails built into them. There's tons of advantages to a chassis system. And if you guys would like more, maybe we'll do a specific video talking about chassis versus stock in the near future. The Matrix Pro, let's kind of talk about some of the features that separate it. So we'll work from the butt to the tip. The Matrix Pro, of course, has an adjustable length of pull, and I got mine with the shortened length of pull adapter, which is perfect for me. It has an adjustable comb height, and I got mine with the new plastic covered cheek piece, which is really nice. It's adjusted via thumb wheel and has set screws. The Matrix Pro, in comparison to the original Matrix, they lightened up the rear portion of the stock here, and one of the things that they did was they opened up the thumb hole. We'll get into some of my complaints with the original Matrix Pro, but I think this opened up hole here for the thumb hole is a significant improvement over the original Matrix. Another really nice feature that they did that I haven't seen anybody else do is they gave you an adjustable bag rider. So you have a spring-loaded adjustable bag rider here in the rear, and it's detented at a couple different points. So if you're ever on a stage and maybe you don't have enough rear bag, you can simply press that button, deploy it, and you're going to get about an inch more basically rear bag. It's going to soak up some of that dead space, which is really, really nice. And of course, you don't have to run it, but if you ever need it, it's there, which is kind of nice to have. The Matrix chassis system and the Matrix Pro, they have a bunch of different adjustable grips. So you could get, a couple different vertical grips, a couple different swept grips, and then you could also get the BA comp grip for this. Chad Heckler over at 5x5 Precision also makes his grip for this chassis, which is pretty sweet. If you're interested in that, reach out to Chad. He's pretty good about that stuff. They also have different gas pedal, thumb shelf things here on the other side. And then they also have different dinguses that basically push out on your finger. They're like training wheels to ensure that you get a 90-degree consistent trigger press every time. It's a really nice thing. It's also a good index point if you want to index your trigger finger off of something, excuse me. Moving forward, Masterpiece Arm sells a bunch of different accessories. It's going to come with a 2-round match saver. You could get data cards that are going to bolt right to it. There's tons of accessories. It has an adjustable mag catch in it. Moving forward to the front of the mag well, it's drilled and tapped, and Masterpiece Arm sells a couple different adapters for on the front of that mag well. Whether you want something that you could drive into a barricade that's going to kind of stick into it, or you want a mag blocker, you could get different attachments for the front of this to do whatever you're trying to do with it, right? So it's nice that there's tons of features there. It has a full-length ARCA rail, and the rail itself here out in the front, they made it wider, significantly wider than the original Matrix, and it almost mimics running a plate on your gun. So you're going to get a wider surface area, which generally gives you a little bit more stability. However, it is a little bit harder to get the can out of it. So it's a wider fore end with the full length ARCA. At the end, it has a steel spigot mount. It's ARCA on one side, flip it over and you get Picatinny. It can accept internal weights. Gray Ops is making the internal weights and they are proprietary for this one. There's 8 internal weights in a set, and I've used 5 for my particular setup here, which we'll come back to in a minute. As far as the external weights, it does have M-LOK, however, they're recessed in there. So you're not going to be able to run your traditional M-LOK weights like maybe you have for the original Matrix, or maybe you had an ACC or something like that. So they are proprietary. Gray Ops is selling steel ones and aluminum ones. The aluminum ones are nice, and that's what I'm running because I don't necessarily need any more weight, but I needed a couple of different QD points so that way I could run my Sykes clutch on the outside. I really like running a Sykes clutch on this chassis. That way I could grab it and push against it. Anytime I'm in like a low kneeling position or something and I want to back off the rifle a little bit, I like to really drive it with that left hand. That way I could better spot my shots. So that's kind of why I'm running that. And then of course you have the night vision bridge out here in the front. Those of you guys curious about the Cerakote job, I'm not exactly sure what Masterpiece Arms calls this. This is how I got it. It's kind of like a white Stormtrooper camo. It almost looks like a Holstein cow. I don't know. There's tons of different things that you can interpret it. It does have this black kind of speckling along it, which is actually kind of nice because if this thing gets dirty or gets dinged up, it kind of camouflages into it. So it is kind of nice. It's white, so it shows a lot of dirt, but it's not that big of a deal. So now that we went all over all the features of the Matrix Pro, I want to kind of compare it briefly to the original Matrix. So my biggest complaints with my original Matrix was the fact that it didn't really balance good unless you added all the front weights. So I had to run the full internal weight kit and the full external weight kit to get my chassis to balance pretty good. And at the time, I was running an Impact with a 24-inch M24 profile barrel. Now I'm running an Impact with a 24-inch. This is actually Chad Heckler's Bartland heavy competition contour. It's basically like a little bit thicker than an MTU around there. So I am running a thicker barrel now, but I did have the M24 in here whenever I first got this thing set up. And this chassis balances way better. So they definitely solved the issue of the balance point. For example, with the internal weights, I'm only running 5 of the potential internal weights. And then I don't really need any external weights. I just have those aluminum ones again for the QD cups. So I have this chassis as it's set up here. This rifle is probably like 20, 22 pounds, give or take. So it's a good bit lighter than how I had to set up my original Matrix to get it to balance good. And I have kind of started to appreciate a little bit heavier of a rifle. I still have a certain limit where I want to still be able to maneuver it pretty good. And the way this rifle is set up right now, the way it weighs, the way it balances, I'm able to flick this chassis around and maneuver it and overall just shoot pretty good with this chassis. Now, in tuning that weight, one of the things that they did was went to that wider fore end. And that's one of the things where it's kind of a give or take. It's kind of a love-hate relationship with me right now. I like the wider fore end because if you get on a prop and you're level, it's nice because you're stuck on there. It's like having a wide bipod. But if you get on there and you're at a cant, sometimes you got to fight it a little bit more because you got wider surface area bearing into the bag and kind of fighting you. It's something you got to get used to. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But getting back to comparing it to the Matrix Pro, and weighting up the front of the chassis and then kind of lightening up the rear of the chassis, we talked about the hole in the thumb hole here. So the original Matrix, you really couldn't get your thumb through there. And you're not supposed to shoot with your thumb on the other side. You want to shoot with your thumb on the same side as your, dominant hand. But whenever you're pre-stage and you're holding your rifle, sometimes I like to be able to wrap my thumb around there just to use the web of my hand to kind of better support the rifle. Get some more bone-on-bone support. That way I'm not fatiguing my muscles pre-stage. So by opening this up, they cut some of the weight out of the rear and allowed you to get that thumb through there, which is a really nice improvement over the original Matrix. Other than that, all the features that you kind of come to love with the Matrix, the fact that it's a super dead chassis to shoot. If you've ever shot some chassis out there and they get a little bit of a twang to them, this is more like shooting a stock, like a Foundation or something, where it's got that just dead feel to it whenever you shoot it. So it's a super nice chassis to shoot. It's super, super solid. Like, it's about as solid as a chassis as you're going to get. How thick this fore end is, how sturdy, how robust this thing is. It's just super, super solid whenever you shoot it. And the way the grips are, the way the trigger finger spacers are, I do kind of like it because it helps me be a little bit more consistent with my trigger press. And I do notice, Matrixes, once you get used to them, they're a really easy chassis to shoot. They're not the easiest to maneuver around and stuff. There's definitely some getting used to it because you don't have a full vertical grip where you could get all the way around it. But once you get the hang of running a Matrix or a Matrix Pro, they are kind of a pretty decently ergonomic chassis. And obviously that's going to depend person to person, right? So now that we talked all about the Matrix Pro, I want to kind of give my overall thoughts and opinions on it. So as I said a couple times throughout the video, it's kind of a love-hate relationship with me and the wide forend. I have got used to it, but one thing that I've learned, whenever you're getting ready to put your gun down on the bag, I used to kind of just plop my rifle down and that would help it kind of soak into that bag. With this wide forend of the Matrix Pro, I find it's easier to just gently set it down and then kind of saw it in once I get my can out. Otherwise, if your can's way off, you're going to really kind of fight this as that sand kind of molds down in there and kind of gets compacted a little bit. So that's just a little bit of a training thing that I've had to get around with the Matrix. Also, I find sometimes whenever I'm transitioning, I have to watch my trigger finger. I have to make sure I tuck it under. Otherwise, I was getting a lot of rubbing on basically my finger from the thumb shelf here. I could possibly try a different thumb shelf, but I've just tried to adjust my grip as I'm transitioning. I want to transition like this, and I have to almost get used to transitioning with my, hand shaped like a fist and tuck that index finger around. But outside of those two minor little things, I've had a lot of good luck with the Matrix Pro. And for what my opinion's worth, I think the Matrix Pro is probably the best chassis that Masterpiece Arms has right now. And between this and the MDT ACC Elite, I think those are easily the two best chassis systems on the market right now. I am looking forward to trying some other stuff out in the future. Well, I guess that kind of wraps up the video. If you guys have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to post them down in the comment section below. As always, remember to like, share, subscribe, go take a look at some of my other videos. If you guys would, please give Masterpiece Arms a shout out. They've done a lot for the precision rifle shooting world, and if it wasn't for them supporting the matches, I wouldn't have got this chassis. So I just want to lastly kind of say thank you to Masterpiece Arms for supporting the sport that I've grown to really love and appreciate. So thank you guys. Have a good one.